TradeMutt Radio, coming through on your wires. All right, well, damn, we were just about to jump. You were just chiming in.
I was just about to ask what the event was that you were at the other week with Donna Thistlethwaite.
What was it? What was the name of that?
Men's Health Matters, I think.
Yeah.
She
That's right.
ran it. She ran it.
Yeah.
Perfect way to have started the podcast.
Exactly. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to TradeMutt Radio. We've got a rugby league royalty in the studio today. Very fortunate to have a man that's played 337 games of NRL, scored 87 tries in that time. He played 28 games of Origin for Queensland, 23 tests for Australia, and he also won a Clive Churchill medal. Darius Boyd, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate having me.
Do you agree with those stats?
Yeah, they're pretty spot on.
They're pretty spot on, yeah.
Do you remember
Wikipedia's
Do you remember the numbers?
Most of them, yeah. Touch and go a couple, but yeah. Pretty close.
It always blows me away when athletes, like when you bring shit up and they just remember the intricate details of like everything that happened in a game because of, you know what I mean? Like cricket, they do it all the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had, when we had Lockyer on, we spoke about that intercept try 2006 to begin the Origin dynasty and just the way he spoke about like that 10 minutes that led up to that and how, because he was talking about how he was like, I can't remember because I was only in grade 8, but they were sort of talking apparently in the papers about it. Probably his last Origin if he didn't win or whatever, and how he was just like mindset on how he was just going to compete for everything in that last 10 minutes and that opportunity, right? And he just, it was incredible listening back to him. Yeah. Mate, thanks so much for coming in. Really appreciate it. Obviously, big time of the year. We've got Origin on tomorrow night. Plenty happening. Dan and I. Dan's a New South Welshman. I'm a Queenslander.
Well, I was just saying,
I
was watching, I was saying to you just before, I was watching your highlights, Origin highlights just before, just to pump myself up. Oh, mate, fuck. Pretty good. Like, and also, most of your tries, I think, you fed from Inglis or Thurston.
Yeah, I can't complain with that. A lot of people said I got very lucky, and I won't disagree with them. It's something that I was very lucky to play in the team I played in for that longer period of time, and also the players that I was next to, and they helped my career a lot.
Mate, they say you create your own luck anyway, so, you had to get yourself there in the first place.
You got to be there, and I was lucky enough to be in a pretty solid side, so I'll take a bit of luck for myself. And
could finish though as well, like,
Yeah, you scored a double in your Origin debut, didn't you? Scored a double?
Yeah, I was. We won 30-0 that game. I thought Origin was easy. How good is this? It's at Suncorp, 30-0, scored 2 tries, and then realised the next game went down to Sydney, and it wasn't the same as raining. It was cold. 80,000 Blues fans. We got the win, but I think it was 16-10 or 14-10. But I realised straight away in game 2 that Origin's not very easy at all. So
absolutely. Well, like we said, we just want to sort of run through, your life in an hour or so, get a bit of an understanding of, who you are, where you've come from, and your sort of journey. And obviously, you're a big advocate now for mental health and well-being. Obviously, that's what we're based around here with TradeMutt and TX, and we just love to, walk through your journey and find out a bit more about who you are and what's sort of, got to where you are now. So, obviously, you're born in Brizzy.
Gold Coast, actually.
Oh, right.
Close enough.
Wikipedia's going to have to be updated.
Can't you update? You can update Wikipedia yourself.
Yeah, I'll go on and edit it.
Do you?
Yeah.
I think you
used to be able to.
I have to add a few more tries on my record there too. Wasn't that many.
So born on the Goldie. Did you grow up there or?
Yeah, we grew up there till I was 18. Lived there most of my life. Grew up, went to school there. Changed schools, went to Palm Beach Currumbin High, just as rugby league excellent school. Tried to further my rugby league career. And then moved up to Brisbane, when I had a chance to play for the Broncos, and
in
and around Brizzy ever since, and called Brizzy home now.
Yeah, cool. And your early childhood, like we were chatting before, you've never met your father. Yeah. So.
I guess you don't really understand that when you're a little kid. You don't, you don't understand mum, dad, siblings, brothers, sisters, any of that stuff. I guess you just kind of go with the flow, what you have, and it wasn't until probably late teens, early adult years, you kind of understand that I don't have a father around, and probably needing that role model support, father figure type, mentor, I guess. And then I think that's when you really start to struggle and probably ask questions too, like why and how come and what's happened. Or, but by that time, my mum was struggling with her mental health and well-being. So I didn't have any questions to ask. I was a pretty shy, quiet kid, so I was pretty closed off, didn't ask questions. And I think it just one of those spirals that got eventually got worse and worse. And
so who was your support network, I suppose, growing up? Like, were you and your mother close?
Yeah, my mum did a great job till I was 15, but it was just really my uncle and grandfather was in my life until I was 8 and 11. They passed away at those ages too, so they were great until those ages. Had them as, they probably took up the slack as father figures, I guess. When they passed away, then it was really just my mum, my grandmother and myself, no siblings. My mum, like I said, did a great job till I was 15. Took me to sporting carnivals, athletics, rugby league. Got me to change schools and go to a sport excellence school. New PlayStations and bikes for Chrissy and all the things you get. So she did a great job. But then when I was 15, her mental health took a turn for the worse, and mental health wasn't spoken. This is 20 years ago now. Wasn't spoken about. It was still stigma and awareness around it now, let alone 20 years ago. And I didn't understand, and had ambulances come to our house and psychologist meetings. And my grandmother was again at an age where she had no idea about it and didn't understand it either. So she kind of got a bit closed off towards my mum, and I probably took her view as well, just being a young kid, not understanding, and tried to make it work for a couple of years till I was probably 17, 18. And my mum was just, she was medicated for major depression. I felt like she wasn't the same mum that I knew and was growing up with. Having to meet her in mental health facilities or assisted living places, it was just, it was a strange place for me to be and see. And I just, didn't take to it well, and we lost contact when I was about 18 when I moved to Brisbane to start my rugby league career, and lost contact for about 8 years.
How did you deal with that, personally through those, periods at the end of your schooling life and your mother going through that? Like, how did you deal with it personally?
Yeah, I think I just closed it off and shut it off, to be honest. And I think it worked for a period of time, and you just shut it away. You think it doesn't affect you, and I want bigger things to do. Or I want to, rugby league was a big part of my life, and I think it was such a big part because it was that one outlet. When I didn't have role models, father figures, a lot of support around, I could go and play a team sport, and be around mates, friendships, coaches, and meet different people. And if you're half good at something too, you felt you get rewarded, you get feedback, you get a pat on the back. Just that really good feeling, I guess, playing a team sport. So I think I really took to rugby league. It was my escape. And I think when my mum was struggling, I really threw myself into rugby league. I played school rugby league, played club rugby league. I was picked on a few rep teams as well. So it was a big driver for me. And going to a sport excellence school, Palm Beach as well. There's kids signed with different clubs. So it was a really big opportunity for me to try and work hard on myself as a rugby league player, better myself, hopefully get a contract and take that as a career path. So I think I kind of just pushed all my mum's challenges aside, even not only my father, uncle and grandfather, all those little things to the side, and just really focused on rugby league. But obviously, as we all know in this room, that's not a good process. It won't work out, and eventually comes back to bite you.
When you're going through all that with this, so you're saying obviously your father wasn't around, you had your grandfather and your uncle around, and then you went through the shit with your mum. You lost your grandfather and your uncle. You ever get to the point where you're like, even though you push it aside, you're like, why me? Like internally, like why has this happened to me?
Oh yeah, I think I was a big victim of my own life for a long period of time. I think that's what got me undone. It was always why me. Too hard basket. When my grandmother was getting elderly, I was looking. I was of her power of attorney. I was looking after her finances. I was trying to find assisted living for her when I was living in a state and she was at the Gold Coast. I used to think then, my mum should be doing this. That's her job, not mine. I was a 22 or 23-year-old kid still, really, with a victim mentality that just had the fixed mindset, negative outlook, and it kind of got worse and worse. It was definitely a bad spiral, and I had no one around me really to kind of go, hey mate, no, shake yourself out of this, or you got to do this, or this is the way, or come with me, or showed some. I just really needed. I had some mentors, but because I was quiet, I really didn't. I didn't open up. I didn't share. I really didn't confide in anybody, and it just got worse and worse. And I needed some professional help.
What about outside, like going to school every day? Like, does any mates at school know what's happening at home, any of this kind of stuff, or no? Not really.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I lived with a family for a little while as well. So when my mum first was getting help with her mental health, I moved in with a family for 12 months. It was a kid that I played in the club rugby league team with, so his family took me in. I was in and out there twice, actually. My mum came out of hospital for a little bit, and I moved out with her for a couple of months, and then she went back in, and I moved back in with them. So I was in there with their family for about 12 months. And that just, just didn't really work out. It was quite tough, I felt. But I had my grandmother there, and that was challenging. She didn't drive at night. Trying to get to school, get to footy training, go places was just going to be more of a challenge. But I decided to move out of their house and move into with my grandmother, and we made it work. But yeah, I think so. A lot of people knew that I was, because when I was living with this family, the mother and the father, they'd turn up, to our footy games. They'd drop me off at school, so they'd see people, other people dropping me off and being my caregiver, I guess. I was even getting rugby league clubs recruitment officers coming to meet your parents or your guardians to sign contracts, and they were meeting with his family. So it was a weird experience. So people knew that I was, my mum wasn't around, and I don't know if they knew why. I didn't speak about it, and I probably didn't know how to even articulate it anyway at the time. But people kind of knew my mum wasn't around, and I was getting help, whether it was from this family or eventually then was my grandmother. But I mean, I was so young, and I didn't speak about it. No one really spoke to you about it, so it was just one of these things. Some of my mates would have known, but you just don't talk about
It's
it.
a hard thing to even know how to even ask. Like, what are you gonna? People are going to ask you, like, what's the go here? Like, nah, they're not really going to do that, are they?
And even because I think I was a pretty shy, quiet kid, and still my personality, I'm a bit reserved now, is that, even if you wouldn't ask to go to a mate's house, or I couldn't ask them to come to mine because they'd probably, it's too hard. Like, whether it was my grandmother or my mate's house, I can't ask for my mate to come to my mate's house. It was just a weird dynamic, So, yeah, footy was the be-all, end-all. And it's quite sad, but it's probably it, really. Like, I didn't have a lot of family around, didn't have any other people to really reach out to, and that wasn't my personality. So it was kind of, footy was the be-all, end-all. And to be honest, I'm lucky it worked out. And I look back now as well to, if I'm being honest, I think it's probably one of the things that got me to where I got in my rugby league career, because I just had no alternative, and I gave it absolutely everything and put my best foot forward, and I took that through the rest of my career. I wasn't the best kid growing up as rugby league sense. I wasn't making all the rep teams. I wasn't the kid that was touted at 12. Like, I didn't get a contract till I was almost 18, and but I think that hard work, set me up for my career and my mindset going through my career as well.
It's a lot to be going through in those formative years, like in those teen years, like late teen years as well, like where they're the years, I suppose, that you kind of set yourself up for professional footy, but to be dealing with all that on the side, like, it's a lot. It's like...
Yeah, I suppose. I never really thought I'd make it, to be honest. I think, I used to say this to myself, and I've said this a few times, different things I do, is that I used to always say to myself, I wonder, I'll look back in 5 years and go, that's why you were worried you weren't good enough, or totally opposite. That's why, I always think, I wonder in 5 years I'll make it. Like in 5 years' time, what were you worried? You were good enough, you made it, And I used to think that all the time. I wonder if I look back, because I used to think I can't even make the Queensland Australian side in my own age group. How am I going to make it to the NRL when they're the best Queensland Australian players from every age group? If I can't even make my own age, like, how am I going to make the best of the best? So, but I had the time to develop and grow into my body, and you get bigger and stronger, and weights and your mindset as well is another thing that I think that a lot of people don't. They take for granted, or you don't really understand the power of your mind. There's so much, just sacrifice and dedication, hard work. There's so many things that go into being, I suppose, good at anything you do, whether that's sporting field or in business, and that's something that I think held me in good stead from rugby league purposes. That my childhood, my upbringing, probably gave me this burning desire and fire in the belly, I guess, to really, be the best that I could possibly be, leave no stone unturned. I think I was able to do that.
I feel like a lot of young blokes struggle with that self-doubt, like that negative self-talk, like, I'm never going to make it, because you're having those thoughts, but you're not like announcing it to the world. It's just like in here, you know what I mean?
I think that's across the board. People do it through your whole life, you know what I mean? There's always, never stops, I think.
And then we were speaking about before off air, but now imagine social media on top of that,
Yeah.
I grew up, when I was, these times I was growing up, and so there was no social media around, so you could get away from it. You could go home and not be bullied, or you could get away from it. You wouldn't have people talking about, your family, or or if you're a rugby league player, or you had a bad game at schoolboy level, or this kid that's meant to be this gun from 15. He's got all the scholarships and contracts, and then at 21, he's working somewhere else. He doesn't have a contract anymore, and he's meant to be the next big thing. It doesn't pan out. That'd be hard to deal with for those kids at young ages.
That's like that Joseph Sawali thing that's sort of playing out. Like, he's sort of really living up to his potential this season. But man, like, that kid was he was a grade 11 or whatever, and they're like saying, there was this massive like struggle between Souths and Roosters to sign him, and they're like, he's the next Sonny Bill Williams, and he's an absolute freak, and like, I imagine that kid's family and how they were like, oh my, like, it'd just be so intense, so intense. Everyone knows who you are, you know.
He would have social media without a doubt. So you imagine his social media following's probably already quite big, and then if he has a bad schoolboy game, or people see him play a game, it's already.
But they want you to fail, right?
Well, I think that's just the society we live in. Unfortunately, it's like it makes other people feel better about themselves when you see someone,
fuck it up,
basically. And I think, and then the other day too. This is the other thing I don't like in my industry in sports is that. He's probably, I don't know, over a couple of year contract, pro-signed $1 million. And he's probably 18 years old, a couple of $100,000 a year for 3 years, so he's earning $1 million over that time. with those types of money comes criticism because I don't know what the average wage is in Australia, but it's probably 60 or 70 grand.
Oh,
and this 18, 17-year-old kid leaving school, never played a game before, is getting 300 or more, possibly 500 to the end of his career, that contract. And with those money, it comes expectation and pressure. And some of these kids, and you see it now that commentators and the ex-players, a lot of them, which I can't stand, but anyway, that they'll come out and they'll base people's performances on money. And I get you're paid to do a job, but at the same time, that's the going rate these days. When ex-players played in the past or when I started, times have changed and money is I get that it's a lot of money in any workforce and it could be better used, but that's just the way it is. Sports just gets paid a lot of money. It is the way it is.
The NRL made a $43 million profit last year. And so, your Anthony Milfords and your Ash Taylors and these blokes that, were on $1 million and they just get crucified. And it's like you're even seeing it happen with Fafita and stuff now at the Titans, like blokes on, whatever, 1.2 or something, and everyone's like, you should be winning a game every week.
See, my argument, instead of and you've got to think about, Dave Fafita's 22 years old. I played with him at the Broncos. He's a young kid, still a kid, and instead of, if you want to sign him for 1.2, that's on you as the club. But what are you doing for him in and around his game, on and off the field, whether that's on the field, what can you teach him to be a better player? Because you're paying him this money, so all that criticism is going to come to him.
Yeah.
But how are you helping him? What are you doing off the field? Who's mentoring? Who's his role model? Who's looking after his money? Who's looking after him and his well-being off the field? There's so many things that come with it.
Do clubs do that?
Well, good clubs do, and there's very few, in my opinion. So that's where I think, and coaches are a big part of that. And I think that's one of the real problems in the game, in my opinion, is that, these kids aren't asked for all this money. If you want to pay them that, of course they're going to take it. It's no brainer. You'd never say no, and you hope they do good things with it. You hope they play good footy. But if the team's struggling, and most of the time when these clubs sign them with those big contracts, it's probably going to a team that needs someone to help them.
Yeah.
So they're probably going to a team that's struggling a little bit. And when they don't perform, they're called everything under the sun. Social media get people in the bandwagon. At the end of the day, we're just, they're just human beings that just want playing a game they love, and they're doing good and they're getting paid well to do it.
Yeah.
But yet all these extra things come with it. And I get it's part of the game, but I still think so much more can be done from the clubs and outside of it for their own players' well-being. And I just think that's where a lot of clubs in particular are letting players down.
So do you reckon that potentially the fact that you weren't earmarked as a young fella might have been played to your advantage because you kind of go under the radar a bit compared to you hear it all the time about young talent that is earmarked. You're going to be the
next big thing,
whatever. And when you're said, when you're going to be the next Greg Inglis or whatever. That's a lot of pressure just with that alone. You know what I mean?
100%.
Straight away, you got the expectation. But if you can kind of fly under the radar, go without the bullshit and just come up,
Yeah, I think it does for sure. And I think, I really didn't realise how much that part's one. I think and the money side is two, and it's gotten worse, that money side. And then obviously social media, there's a 24/7 talk show of rugby league now. So it's just they have to build content. And I think another thing for players to just get an understanding as well, I guess, that the quicker you can learn that it's a business and it's about creating content and views and hits and data, then you can hopefully take yourself away from it. Because end of the day, someone once said to me that works in the media industry, and it's a really good point. He said, you're never the superstar that they say you are, and you're never the trash kicker that they talk about you either. So you're never going as good at the heights they put you at.
Yep.
That mega star that's the best in the world and whatever, and then you never he should retire, he's terrible, he's out of form, he's never that. It's heroes and villains, and it's
because everything
dramatic.
In between is not worth reading, right?
Exactly right. And I think that's when if you can kind of understand that at an early age, one, it's a business, do the best for yourself and your family, and two, that whatever's being said about you, that it's not always a true reflection. Yeah. I think you can kind of come to terms with it a bit better in saying that I still don't agree with it, but it's not going to change. Yeah, so that's the best way to handle it as a player in the game. Totally.
Well, I want to talk about you were saying before, clubs trying to sign you an 18-year-old bloke. What does that process look like? You're playing club and footy at school.
Yep.
What's that step into NRL? How does that happen?
Yeah, I think it's just playing as much footy as you can, really, and a lot of the scouts at different clubs, going around to different, probably bigger events. So Queensland schoolboy carnivals or 18s, 19s rep carnivals, and even at club level, but even earlier as well. At even 15s, there's clubs around, and so I was just playing footy both school and club. My first offer I actually got was from the West Tigers. It was actually a $500 scholarship.
$500.
$500, and they wanted me to change schools. So Kebra Park down the Gold Coast is a big rugby league excellent school as well, and it's a bit of a rival for Palm Beach Currumbin. They wanted me to change schools in my final year, and I was never going to do that. So that was out, and then I got an offer to go down to the Bulldogs on a 2-year contract.
Both teams that were pretty good during that period too. 2005.
Yeah, well, I was at school 2005, so the Tigers just won the comp.
Just won the comp.
Yeah, and Bulldogs, they would have been...
Won the comp 2002 or 3. Yeah.
I think.
Like that,
04?
Early.
Yeah, so... Yeah, but both good clubs. And I was playing at the Burleigh Bears at the Gold Coast at the time at club level, and they had affiliation with the Bulldogs. So they had some kids that were up there playing at Burleigh, and they'd go down to the Bulldogs once they finished school. And then... So that was an option. That was a real option, the Bulldogs one. And then my high school coach, Rod Patterson, who I still keep in contact with, a bit of a Wayne Bennett kind of person, role model, father figure type. You know, there's a lot of respect in rugby league community and then schooling industry as well. He kind of, I think the Broncos had one scholarship left, and he kind of got asked from Cyril Connell, who's passed away now, old recruitment manager at the Broncos, who should we give it to? And I think he put my name forward, and the Broncos was always my favourite team growing up. The Gold Coast didn't really have many. They were in and out of the comp. They had the Chargers, Seagulls. So the Broncos are almost my favourite team since I can remember, since I was probably 6 or 7 years old. And I got a scholarship to go up there, a scholarship for my final year of school, and a 1-year contract to leave and go up there for 1 year of their squad and their season. I was never not going to take it. I remember I had a couple of mates saying, "Oh, why would you do that?" You know, they would look at players in your position ahead of you. You know, I think it was Carmichael Hunt was just on the scene there. They had Scott Minto. They had Leon Bott was a new guy around who had an unbelievable season that year. Craig Frawley, Tame Tupou. They had a couple of guys at wingers and fullback at centres. They had Justin Hodges and Brent Tate. You know, so they had gun players in those positions. And remember, someone you should just go to the Tigers or the Bulldogs that don't have those as good people in front of you. But I never even looked at it like that. Again, I never thought about playing NRL. I just,
Fuck, that's wild, hey?
To get into the system was what I wanted to do. And the Broncos are my favourite team, so why wouldn't I do that? It was just a no-brainer. And it's only an hour drive up the highway. Yeah. It was a no-brainer. And I wanted to hopefully play Queensland Cup the following season in the Broncos system and just go from there.
Yeah, and so when you you obviously got your scholarship, you come in, and did you do a pre-season that year with the Broncos?
Yeah. So originally, I think the year at school, they took you up for a camp. They do a couple of testing, you up a 3-day camp. You do beep test, bench press test. You do some skills and whatnot, and just see where you're at. And they take you on some fitness tests and kind of just say, give you a little insight. We train with the Broncos in their pre-season, and it would have been 05 pre-season. Did a session with them, so all these kids from school come in and did a session with the main team just to kind of see. We had to do 2100s in like certain times on the minute. I think it was like 20 seconds on, 40 seconds off. Do 20 of them, and it was different groups. There's like a fast, medium, and a slow group. So kind of just getting into that, seeing a couple of guys that I'd played schoolboys with in the year before, and other guys that I'd watched on TV, get a bit of a taste of it and go, oh, this is what it's like. And then so obviously signed that contract, went up to Brisbane, moved into the Broncos' house. At a house, they put 3 or 4 players in from different places around Queensland or wherever, even New Zealand. And then we did a 6-day army camp. My first thing into the Broncos, my first, I suppose, stepping into the Broncos was a 6-day army camp. That was really, really tough. Wasn't but again, it was pretty cool to do it with some of those Webb Keys and Corey Parkers and Darren Lockers and those type of players. Pretty cool to do some of those things with your idols, I guess. And then you're straight into it. Living at this Broncos house, 6 days a week. I only got Sundays off. Getting smashed, but getting in really good shape. It was just a massive learning curve, but something that was really good for me.
How was your headspace through all this? Because you were chatting before about like the negative talk, sort of being like, "Am I good enough?" How were you in those early stages? Again, like mindset wise, were you like I'm just going to day by day, or like
I didn't. To be honest, I don't even think I thought that way. I was in a really good space. I think it was my dream. To be honest, I'm up, moved to Brisbane. I think moving to Brisbane was tough. Again, being a shy, quiet kid, going out of your comfort zone, even though it was an hour trip up the highway, moving in with his family. They had some kids, 14-year-old boys themselves, twin boys. It was a 3-story home, right walking distance to Red Hill where they train. A couple of boys from Central Queensland, one from the Sunshine Coast, one from New Zealand. So there's 4 of us. We got to mingle and meet each other pretty quickly and get a bit of a bond. And then just getting to training. Had to buy a car. or worry about getting lifts. Sam Thaiday used to live at that house, so he'd come around occasionally. He took me to training a few times, so you're getting to know everyone pretty quickly. The camp was great just to get to know everyone on that 6 days. I think that's what is great about the camp. Obviously, you learn a lot as far as mindset and work ethic, but it's really good bonding and how to meet new people as well. So that was good. But yeah, it was just my mindset was good. I think so. I was just get all this Broncos kit, free Nike clothes, getting paid more than I've ever been paid. It wasn't much, but I was happy, and I was running around with Darren Lockyer and Sean Berrigan and Petro and all these superstars I've been watching on for years and years on TV. So I was just in this whirlwind and I probably couldn't have got the grin off my face, to be honest.
Yeah. It sounds like you just felt like you were lucky to be there.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, like I said, I never was this touted kid. I was always decent rugby league player, but I was never I made Queensland Australian schoolboys in my last year, which was really exciting for me. And then obviously going to the Broncos was huge, but I was never this big touted thing. And so just going up there, like I said, I was going up to hopefully play Queensland Cup. I'd played one Queensland Cup game when I was at school. So I'd played under 19s mostly before that. So to go up there and play against men and play in their reserve grade comp with some, fringe Broncos
really
players and ex-Broncos players was going to be a good challenge for me. So I was looking forward to that. Never even thought about playing for the Broncos still, even at that stage, because it's just, it's just so far out of your thinking, I guess, and I just wanted to, I was just enjoying the time and the ride.
Talk us through, your relationship with Wayne Bennett and how that sort of came about. Obviously, he was your head coach, but how did you create that bond? Because it's been fairly well publicised how much of a father figure he was through your career. I don't know, are you still close now?
Yeah, we still keep in contact. We still speak to each other a fair bit. He was just someone that, and he does this for a lot of people. I just probably took to him more, I think, because of my situation. But he just cares, and I think that's what. And I think that's the art of coaching, to be honest. Is and the art of just managing people or leading a team is that if you care about someone, they're obviously good at what they do. They're in the building for that reason. They're good at what they do to get the best out of someone. If you show if you value them, you respect them, you show them that you care, then they'll put their best foot forward. And I think that's what I've seen with Wayne. He cares about his players. He wants them to succeed off the field just as much as on it. And I think that's he tries to take any distractions away. He asks questions about your family. He'd ask me about my grandmother, my mother. What's my history? Why haven't I spoken to my mum in this amount of time? Do you think I should go speak to her? Have I bought a house yet? When I signed a better contract, have you bought a house? I bought a car before a house, and he clipped me over the ears. Gave me a bit of a spray for that. So just really trying to be that role model, father figure. And I don't think he purposely takes it on. It's just his nature, and that's what he does. And that's why I think he's been so successful such a long period of time, because players want to play for him because he just cares. He genuinely cares, and I think that's what you can see the genuine side comes out of him, and I think that's what I really took to as a young kid.
And what does that look like? Obviously at training and stuff like that, but is it sort of outside when you're like something's going on or I need advice? Like, is it's outside of being at the Broncos at Red Hill or whatever? It's like you're home, you're struggling, you need to know something. You're on the phone talking. Is that the sort of relationship it is?
That's the thing I think a lot of people probably didn't understand. I was, like I said, I was a pretty shy, quiet kid for a long period of time. Our relationship's grown since I've made some changes in my own personal life, because I've been able to open up and share and discuss things a lot more. But prior to that, it was hard to get 2 words out of me. That was just the kind of kid I was. And Wayne doesn't speak a lot either. He likes to listen. He kind of evaluates you while you're the dummy and just keep speaking. He'll keep evaluating until you don't shut up. So he doesn't say a lot either. And on the footy field, did you give you some direct little terms, but apart from that, he wouldn't say a lot.
Must have had a few awkward silences with the big fella.
Plenty of awkward silences. Yeah, there's plenty, especially in the early years. But he knew when to ask the right questions. Again, you knew that you could trust him, that he cared. He asked the right questions. He generally cared. He'd remember about certain things. If he'd seen you were off, he would call you in the office and ask you what's going on. So I had plenty of times I was sitting across from him, like we're sitting today, and I'd break down in tears about different things, whether it was my own performance or family or whatever. And that's where you build that trust, you build a rapport, you build respect. And I just generally knew he cared. So I generally knew that even though I didn't open up enough in my early years, I knew that I could if I had to. And I knew he cared about me on and off the field, which was one of his traits.
Yeah, absolutely.
So at what point in time did you actually start to believe that you were sort of going to be good enough? You know what I mean?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess obviously I got picked in round 1 in 2006, so I didn't trial too well in the preseason going into that first game, and again I wasn't expecting to play. I trialled the first game was a mixed Q Cup NRL trial against the Cowboys in Rockhampton. I played okay on that one. The next game was a full NRL trial, and we played Canberra and Wagga Wagga, I think it was, or Orange, and I dropped about 3 balls. I just wasn't used to being, contacted against men. I was an 18-year-old kid playing against men, just in contact, lost the ball a couple of times. Wayne didn't pick me for the 3rd trial against Melbourne. They used to always play Melbourne at Toowoomba. And then Jocelyn Hodges pulled out, and he said, playing Melbourne, and Greg Inglis was the centre at Melbourne, just he's a year out from me. He's the same age actually, but he debuted a year before me, and he had an unreal season at Melbourne. He goes, you played against, as Wayne does, you played against that kid at school, didn't you? You can tackle him. I was like, yeah. Like freaking out, but yeah, I can tackle him. He was all right, you can play centre and you mark him then. I was like, yep, no worries. So I'm playing an NRL trial again next to Lockie and Tatey and all these players, playing Mark and Greg Inglis, and I'd already played him in schoolboys, but he's bigger, stronger, faster from his Melbourne, 12 months at Melbourne, and I actually played okay in that game, did some good things, and but still didn't think anything of it. And then there's always a week off before the season, so you have that last trial, you have the weekend off the following weekend, and then the round 1. I never really played on the left wing, but all of a sudden through training, I was on the left wing with Sean Berrigan, and I was training there a lot, on left wing and doing defensive drills and things. I'm thinking, I started to think, well, I might be playing here. Like, why am I on the left? Like, there's other guys that could be in this spot. Like, why does he keep training me there? He didn't say anything. And then just before the round 1 game come up, he told me I was playing first game on the left wing. And I just remember, obviously didn't have a lot of people to call, but my grandmother was one, and a couple of friends and things, and then it all just started from there. Getting photos for papers and headshots and then you start playing a few games, and people, go back to the Gold Coast a fair bit, and you're walking down the mall, and people want to get a photo with you, and that, and I was just like, oh, this is
whole new world.
Well, yeah, and I didn't. Again, that's something that I struggled with. I think because I knew this was probably my negative mindset coming back then. I think I knew that I wasn't a popular kid at school. I didn't have a lot of friends. I wasn't. I didn't go out to parties. I wasn't drinking. It was hard for me in my situation too to do those type of things. So as you're a teenager and you're doing all these things, that wasn't me. So I wasn't a popular kid at school by any means. And then 1 year later, I started to be this popular person because I'm playing rugby league, and I really did struggle with that because I'm still the same person, but all of a sudden I'm popular because I play sport and I'm on TV. And that, I think, really warped my outlook on life and people too. I really didn't like that because it just wasn't me as a person anyway, let alone, I just didn't really comprehend that well. And it probably took me a really long time to come to terms with that, I think,
Yeah, well, we're just kicking off, you're talking about, the popularity as a footy player and being so, different to who you were at school and how hard that was for you to take. And then, Ed, and when we were just off air, you were mentioning imposter syndrome, something that a lot of us know, a lot about. Is that kind of what you felt? Or was it more along the lines of these people only like me because I'm a footy player and they don't actually give a fuck about who I am? Yeah,
it was probably a number of things, I think. I just really didn't know how to grasp it. I knew that, 6 months prior, I just, didn't have a lot of people around me, didn't have a lot of people to support me or care, and then all of a sudden, people want a photo or signatures or want to have a chat. And I probably, to be honest, there's probably a bit of time where I probably, what's the word? I guess entertained it and wanted to impress people and wanted to be everyone's mate and feel like I was cool or whatever, just because I didn't have that when I was a kid, and probably wanted to feel important or cared about or special or whatever you want to call it. And then after a while, I really realised, and it's probably one of the things that's been good for me as far as even just retiring and leaving the sport, is that I've never, and I don't, like I said off air, I don't have social media. So it's not something that I'm not trying to keep up with anything, and I don't. That's not to disrespect anyone that does have social media or do other things, but I just think that for me personally, what works for me, that's just something that's I think been really good for me. It's just something that I always wanted to play rugby league because I love the game, never because of anything else. I never really enjoyed the other aspects that come with it. I learned how to deal with it and play the game essentially with media and events and other things, I guess. But it wasn't something that come naturally to me. And now that I'm out of the game, I don't miss those side of things. I don't chase that stuff either. So it's kind of, I think it's been one easy way for me to kind of just slowly get out of the game and do what I want to do and give back and help others, but do it in a way that suits me best, I guess.
So when was it? Do you remember the first time you had to do like a TV interview, like a media interview?
I I don't really remember the first one. The Bronx were good. They used to put media bans on, Wayne was good, I should say, put media bans on, young kids that were coming in. So my first whole year, I didn't really do a lot of media. But I had a few little running instances that just was not good for someone like me to come across. For example, I remember sitting at a game, I think it was in Penrith, might have been mid through the first year, and a journalist come up and they had the little, recording mic, but he just started chatting to me like, oh, that was a good game, mate, blah, blah, blah. What did you think of it, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden I just seen his little mic just starting to get closer to my face. And I was like, oh, you're not recording, hey? And he was like, I'm not allowed to, I'm off. And he's, oh, that's right, no, sorry, mate, completely forgot, no worries, all good. You had a good game, and just walked off. And that was
bit invasive,
Well, that was just like he was trying to get his
something
little story out of me before. And I just had some of these little instances, not long after that, or maybe 12 months after, they rang my grandmother up. My grandmother's I don't know, she was probably 80 years of age at this time, 78 or 80 years of age, elderly woman living by herself. Just some
vulnerable.
Vulnerable. Just rang her up asking about, what's he doing, where's he going, different clubs or contracts and things. And my grandmother being, proud of me as, NRL player, was giving as much info as she possibly could.
Oh, was she?
Well, that's how they get their fucking credit card details. Like when you get telemarketed, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
right.
So I just had some of these little instances along the way. I was already, again, like I said, a victim of my own life. I had some challenges. I didn't trust people because, my mum left. I didn't have a dad. My uncle and grandfather left, even though they passed away. These people, my closest people, were leaving me for different reasons. So I had a lot of trust issues. And then, in the media, I'm in this big game of rugby league, loving this sport, and all of a sudden I'm getting let down by the media. Just do some little shady things, and they'll ring up your closest people and try to get around you and speak to them. And it just started happening really early on, and that
you can understand
warped my thinking again.
You can understand why it creates like that hatred and that divide between like professional athletes and obviously the general public. And then that's how the general public is forming their opinion about you as a person, because they only see you in the media or when you're playing, but you're not saying anything when you're playing. They're just seeing how you play. So like you can understand how there's that massive disconnect between reality or perceived reality and actually what is going on. Yeah. And it's like, how long did it take you through your career to sort of understand that you probably needed to mold or create your own narrative, I suppose? Like how did that come about?
It wasn't until I went to a mental health facility myself. I was really struggling in Newcastle just with a few different things, like not coming to terms with my mum in those situations. My grandmother, my performances, put rugby league first and my family and everything else second, probably from my childhood. So when rugby league wasn't going well, I was injured, getting criticised, scrutiny, then my whole life would come crashing down. So it wasn't probably till I spent 3 weeks there and just learnt some things, some tools, some tips, wanted to change my life, turn it around, that I really understood that rugby league, end of the day we get paid, the money that comes through the game is through the media. They're not always out to get you, and even if they are, you just got to hold the high road and be the best version that you can be. Don't just stoop to their level. That was my mentality as well. So just and kind of just say yes. For such a long time, I'd been hiding away, trying to hide my life away. I didn't want people to know, who I was, what it was about, anything about my family or my closest people. So I used to decline interviews. I'd say no. I wouldn't even speak in interviews. People have seen those ones. Said,
was that infamous one? Yeah, that 2-word answer one.
That one was part of that. So just all these things but then like you said, people are making up their own assumptions of who you are as a person, and most people thought probably negatively of me because of what I was doing in the media, and I was doing it to the media, not to the general public.
Totally.
But I didn't know that because I wasn't. I didn't understand that at the time, so I just had to change my mindset on a lot of things, and that was one big part of things.
It's also it's pretty hard to be like, you're never going to be like, well, actually, you don't understand, what I've been through, and also you're never going to explain your trust issues or any of that kind of shit. You're just going to be like,
be that vulnerable, you just sort of cut it off, piss off.
Imagine having to try explain it to everyone you come across. You know what I mean? And I'm not as comfortable in these situations for all these reasons. Just like, fuck it.
Yeah, I just had no idea, to be honest. I just thought, I'm in this. You just trust into it, and then like I said when we spoke about at the start, you have clubs have a big part to play, and I think these days there's well-being managers and career coaches and a lot of other people in clubs that can really guide people along and make sure there's a media manager there looking after you when you're doing media and what questions they're asking, and let's not put him up today because they might ask this. Let's put a more experienced person up. So there's just so much more around it these days, and there has to be. But at that time, there wasn't a lot. So I was kind of just thrust in there. Did a bit of media training, but again, wasn't good at it. Still didn't understand it. Didn't like it. Didn't want to do it. So, and if you don't want to do something, you're not going to do it well. And again, those trust issues, the little couple of things that I'd come across early in my career with the media, put a bit sour taste in my mouth. And once I had a fixed mindset on something or closed off. Oh, that was it. That was me at that period of time. So you couldn't change my mind.
So you never have have you ever had social media? Ever had it?
I had Facebook. I had a fake name. I had probably 100 friends for a bit. So apart from that, but no, I've never had it. Like I said, I've got LinkedIn now just for some work stuff, but I've never really had it. Had MySpace for a little bit, just going with the fad like everyone did, I guess. But it just doesn't suit me as a person and my personality. Even LinkedIn, I find it challenging for me personally.
Yeah,
just
would they?
Doing something or doing an event and then almost spruiking myself on there. I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me. But that's fine. Like I said, I'm not bagging anyone that has it, because that's how you feed your family and do work, good things. So it's definitely really useful. So my wife does a lot of work on there and makes really good income on there too. So. It's just not me as a person.
So in those years, like when you're having run-ins with the media or all that kind of stuff, like how are you actually consuming that content? Like, are you aware of it? Like, are you reading papers? Are you watching the news? Like, seeing, like, where are you seeing it? How do you know that it's not being received well?
I used to Google my name multiple times a day.
Bullshit.
Multiple times a day, yeah.
Just really to see bad. What new...
Wow.
And then if anyone was writing something bad, I'd make sure I knew the journalist's name. I'd never speak to him again. That was the smart mentality.
Holy fuck. That is full on.
Yeah, there wasn't, again, like I said, there wasn't much social around. So, and Wayne always used to say, don't read the papers. And if you want to read the paper, or tell your mum to grab it, or this is in general, or whoever to grab it, and you read it after the game. So I used to take that on board a little bit. And then after a while, there was a period where I wouldn't buy the paper, but I'd either Google it or I'd go to a shop purposely to just go look at it and look through it, and, just have a look at see what things are written.
So in a sense, you're like constantly looking over your shoulder almost.
Or just constantly living in that negative spiral.
Headspace,
and when it got, I suppose it was in a period of time though when I wasn't playing well. I was in Newcastle. Our team was struggling a bit, so I knew that was out there because I just knew, So I probably never experienced that before, so I probably wasn't like that at other originally.
Yeah. Because you had success, obviously. Broncos.
Prior to that, I was pretty successful. So it wasn't a lot of you'd lose a game, but I wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
When Newcastle didn't make the finals for the first time in my career, probably 6 years into my career, a couple of injuries, other criticism, other challenges. Like I said, my grandmother away from home from her, and I was going through my own mental health struggles at that time. It was probably really starting to come out then. So that's where it's that downward spiral. I wouldn't leave the house. Didn't want to go to the shop and someone.
Yeah.
Oh, what are you doing, mate? You suck. He's lost, and whatever. And we lost 7 games in a row in Newcastle at one point. So I don't think I left the house for much in those 7 weeks, apart from going to training and playing games. And obviously that took a massive toll on my closest friends and my wife as well.
It's an interesting one, right? So obviously when you're up, you're full of confidence, and it's it's just another day. Whoever you're competing against that week, you're probably feeling as though you can beat them, right? But when you're losing in a team environment, because I suppose people take losing or failure or mistakes differently, right? But how as a team do you change that mentality of going from like 7 losses, don't want to leave the house, can't read the paper, fuck, we're so shit, to turning that around? Like, what happens? What do you need to do?
Well, that's $1 million question, I think. To be honest, it's an old cliche, but you just got to keep working hard at training and just keep turning up, keep working hard, and hope the tide will turn.
And take the little wins or something like that.
I guess, you can do that as well. I guess in different games, whether you played well for the first half and then you lost in the second or whatever, you take those, parts of the performances, try and freshen up, maybe go do something different. Don't go to training. If you've got training 3 days this week, maybe one of those days we'll go to the movies as a team and just
chill out,
watch a movie. Just get away from footy.
Break the cycle.
Yeah, just get out of that cycle, get out of that, that negative space. Because sometimes when you're struggling, you don't want to almost turn up to work. It just reminds you of all that negativity, whether it's any workforce, whether it's sport or whatever. So you just got to try and mix it up, freshen up, freshen the body, whether it's freshen the mind, focus on some of those positives, like you say. And
because you don't stop, you don't forget how to play football.
No, it's confidence.
That's because I'm, the sports psychology side of things, it's just incredible, right? Like even like Daniel Ricciardo and the F1 stuff at the moment, like that guy is a freak, right? But all of a sudden he's like lost a bit of confidence and like he's way off, and it's like seems to just be his head, which is incredible. Like we've been talking about, like the power of the mind, and it's sort of, I suppose, how important is that now for sporting clubs and sports people, the actual mindset? Like, is that something that people are really getting into now?
Oh, I can't speak for all sports. I think I've just come in before today. I think there's about two. Nathan Brown got sacked, I think, today, and looks like Michael Maguire at the Tigers is about to get sacked too. So sometimes I think, Michael Maguire's won a comp. Paul Green doesn't have a job at the moment. He's won a comp. It's a volatile industry, sports, whether you're coaching or you're a player or an athlete. But I generally think the mindset and the mind has got to be, it's almost more than 50%, because like I said before, if you're in the building, anyone in this room, you're here because you're good at what you do.
Yeah.
So the other part is that your mind has to match that. Whether it's your physical capabilities or whether it's your other educational skills or whatever, but your mind has to match that. So what is your home life like? Are you eating healthy? You get enough sleep? Do you have a positive growth mindset? Are you open to new things? Do you like helping people? There's all these other things that. Getting away, for example, rugby league. If you've got a day off on Wednesday, don't watch highlights or sit at home and do nothing. Go out and spend time with your family, or go play golf, or get away from the game. Go away from, get out of it.
Escape out of it.
Yeah, get away from it so you can clear your mind, freshen up, and come back, and then you're ready to go. On Thursday or whatever day it is. So I think the mindset thing is huge, and I think it's only going to get bigger, especially with, like we were speaking about before, social media. If you don't play well. When I first started playing, you could read it in the paper tomorrow and then it'd be gone. Now it's on talk shows straight after the game. It's social media. You're criticised on your own personal page, on the club's page, and then it's constantly put in your face until you prove otherwise and play better the next week or in 4 weeks' time. It's never ending, and that's a hard thing to swallow for athletes today.
And as you say, the whole thing's just advertising. Like everything, with whatever you can do to sell a page or a paper or whatever, so that advertisers can buy their space in the page. You know what I mean? So the clicks, it's literally the only
sometimes
point.
It's a headline. You don't have to read the article. If you click on the headline and the headline doesn't match the article, it doesn't matter. They've already got their data. It's done.
Yeah.
So it's the mindset work, I think, in my opinion, is got to go further, and I think it starts with it definitely starts with the clubs and the head coaches, the ones that drive a lot of that, because you can have, like I said, we've got wellbeing managers and so much support in clubs now, and funding for it. But if you're not getting the communication, the care, the trust, the value from the head coach, then if say I was a wellbeing manager and I was trying to help you, and we had this plan and this regular check-ins, and we were got your hobbies and interests, and we were doing all this work to work on your wellbeing plan, but then the head coach that picks the team isn't talking to you, he's not communicating to you, he's not telling you why you're in the team, why you're out, he doesn't you're injured, then that your well-being is not going to be good, because the person that you need the most clarification from and trust in isn't giving it to you.
Yeah.
So I really think a big part of it comes from obviously the top and the club down, but the head coach in particular.
That's a big thing. That's a massive thing that we've learned, with our organisations, and it's never something you nail. I don't think you ever nail it. You're constantly working on it. You're constantly got to work on the way you're communicating with each other and your team, and how information's filtering, through. Yeah. And there's all these external factors that contribute to how good you are at that. If cash flow's not good, or if there's stresses for whatever reason, you know what I mean, you go into your shell a bit, and you're you're good at it one week, and then another week you're just you're dealing with your own shit, you know what I mean? And it's harder to keep it up, So
I think if you're open and you know that the boss or the manager, the head coach, or whoever you are in a leadership role, if they generally have a care in that space, then it doesn't matter if you don't get it right, because it's just they care, they understand, they're happy to have a conversation, they're happy to work with you. If you bring something up, that it's no problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that's the key. It's not so much you have to have all the answers and be perfect. It's just about knowing that those people generally care and they want the best for you. And if we can do something better, I'm all ears for it. And I think that's the real key.
And is that obviously, you won a comp in your first year, then you played Origin 2008, then you left the Bronx, went with Wayne to the Dragons. How did that process? Because obviously you'd built such a rapport with him, you just wanted to go with him. Was that the main reason he was moving on?
No, it was actually this is when I really learned the rugby league's a business. You talk about loyalty a lot, and I probably got criticised for loyalty over the years, especially when I left the Dragons, I think, because we were successful there, and I did follow Wayne after that. But when I was at the Broncos, I didn't know that if the club doesn't want you, you don't stay there. So I had a contract for 2009. I remember Wayne grabbing me and just saying, look, you better go have a chat with management upstairs, see what they plan for you. And I was like, that was a bit strange. So I went up and chatted to, I think it was Andrew G, the footy manager at the time, ex-player, and he just said, look, you've just played State of Origin. You're doing really well, but after 2009, we won't re-sign you. And this was in 2008. So he goes, did you might as well leave now? Are you playing good footy? You're not injured. Just played State of Origin.
Fuck.
And this was later in the year because my manager, I said there was, I wanted to see if I could extend my contract. My manager said, Broncos aren't willing to extend it, but blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I want to, I could see there's other options. I was like, no, I want to stay. So this was later in the year. So when I found that out, and me being that wanting trust and being valued, I was out. As soon as I was out, I was never staying for 2009. Even if doubled my pay, I was never staying because once I was told,
you just felt totally let down.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm out. So Wayne was like, you can come with me. I remember going back down to Wayne. I probably had a few tears in my eyes, and he's like, yeah, you can come with me. And by then, I think Sonny Bill left the Bulldogs late to go overseas, so that opened an opportunity there. So the only two options I had was the Bulldogs or the Dragons. And obviously I was going to go with Wayne because Wayne had been there. I knew Wayne, and it was a no-brainer. And he already said, "Look, come with me." And so that's how it worked out. And then ever since then, I had made a conscious effort. I was like, whatever Wayne's going to do, I'm going to stay, because for two reasons. I thought, one, I could be the best version of myself on the field and be the best player. I thought he's the best coach, but I didn't think that this is much, but I'm so glad I did. But more importantly, I thought I could be a better person and learn so much more off the field. And I knew that he had my back regardless. And I think that's what, once I went to the Dragons, I wanted to stay with him as long as I could, because I really respected him and valued all the things he'd done for me up until that point.
Well, it must have been a huge moment for you then, in 2010 when, you won the comp with the Dragons, you won a Clive Churchill medal. And probably when you're going up, your name's called out, end of the game, you just won a comp. Your second one, you're walking up there, best on ground, you just be like, fucking get that into you. You know what I mean? Like, how were you in that moment? Was it just like, fuck, I've finally done it?
Like get that up you to the Broncos.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, is it?
I don't think it really crossed my mind, because at the end of the day, I think I just realised it was a business, and I always, I was so grateful I got the opportunity to go to the Dragons and into Newcastle as well. I learned a lot. It was great to go away from home, really grow as a person. I went through some struggles in Newcastle, but again, I probably wouldn't be here today in the space I am without going through those struggles. So I'm really grateful that I won a comp at the Dragons, so I'm so grateful I did do all those things. But I still was a Broncos man. Like, end of the day, like I said, I was growing up since a little boy. I was a bit homesick. Like, over those 6 years being away, like I said, my grandmother was getting elderly, power of attorney, trying to help her, sort of her things. I used to fly back to the Gold Coast almost every weekend if I had the time. So all my best mates from Brisbane. So it was still home.
Yeah.
And I always
wanted to come back.
I never thought I'd get a chance to come back to Brisbane. I thought if I had to go back, I'd probably have to go to the Titans. No disrespect to them, but Brisbane
you can
was my
say
team.
This is a very open, honest podcast.
I had conversations with the Titans about going there before I actually went to Newcastle. And again, thankful to Wayne. Wayne got the job back at the Bronx and took me with him, and was able to go back to the Broncos, finish my career there, captain the club, and now still work there in retirement. So I know it's been an amazing whirlwind. It's some challenges, some highlights, but very, very grateful for it all.
I just want to talk through your mental health journey at the Knights and those 3 weeks.
Yep.
What did that look like? What was that period of time? Because I know debunking or just like pulling the lid off and being like, this is the process. Because I'm like writing a blog at the moment that we're sending out next week because I'm on a mental health plan. Just being like, this is the process. Like, this is how it happened. So what was that journey for you?
Yeah, it was probably so it was 2014. Went to mental health facility. It was probably 2 years prior. Went to the Knights in 2012. Really struggled personally in my own performances and team. Like I said, I think we missed the 8 that year. Come off 3 years really successful at the Dragons. Probably just thought it was going to pick up where it left off. We had Wayne. I went there. We got a couple of signings. It didn't work out that way. I remember there was footage of me crying in the sheds. Might have been half-time or full-time. I can't really remember. It might have been full-time, I'm pretty sure. And Wayne giving me a bit of hug, and that was just like footage, and that was on, I don't know, the news or some talk show or whatever. I was really struggling with that, just that side of things. I was seeing, so my wife was like, you need to see someone. That wasn't just it too. It was my mood around the house, like isolating myself, not wanting to leave the house, Googling my name, like all these different things, my mum's troubles, so many different challenges we were going through. So I was seeing a psychologist for probably 2 years prior to going to the mental health facility. But I wasn't really open to it. I felt like my wife was kind of pushing me into it, not because I wanted to go. Almost like she thinks there's something wrong with me. Why am I going? What's wrong with me? I didn't get anything out of it because I didn't really want to be there. Long story short, my wife was like, in 2014, like, this isn't a healthy relationship for me to be in. I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. And that was really the rock bottom moment then. It was kind of like, I looked around my house and she moved out half of her stuff and just kind of looked around my house. I'm sitting in Newcastle, no real friends, not really much family.
Can't leave the house.
Yeah, well, don't want to leave the house. But just really looking around, I'm 27. I've done all these things in rugby league. I've reached more than I've overachieved in my rugby league career, in my opinion. I thought I just want to play one game for the Broncos as a kid. So to do what I've done, but I'm 27, sitting in Newcastle in that half-empty house with no mum, no dad, no real family. My grandmother's got dementia, getting old. Most of my friends, a couple are in Brisbane, a couple here in Newcastle, but not really. What do I have to show for myself, for my life? It was just quite a really, light bulb but eye-opening moment. Just shit. I don't know what's wrong, but I need to change. I didn't know what I had. I don't know if it was depression, anxiety. I don't know what was going on, what my mental health was doing, or why I was the way I was. But I could look at old photos when I was 6, 7, 8, 10-year-old kid, holding trophies and smiling, going to athletics carnivals, footy games, and this is really happy kid. And I want to know where that happy kid went. So I rang my footy manager and said, look, I need to do something. I'm not in a good space at all. He goes, yeah, I know what to do. He rang a lady at a mental health facility who I actually still keep in contact to this day. She's been amazing, like a second mother to me. She rang me up and said that, yep, went to this mental health facility in Wentworthville. Said, look, come on. Say it was a Friday. It was going on a Monday. Come in, I'll look after you. I'll meet you at the door. We'll have it all sorted. No dramas. So I remember just getting on the phone and just instantly crying. I realised that, organise something. I just wanted to. I just knew I needed to change. I don't know what I was going in for. I didn't know what kind of help. I didn't know if I needed medication. I didn't know what. I just wanted to be open, honest, and just move forward. I think that was really good because it was just the best way to go in, open to. So when I went to the mental health facility, there's group sessions, there's individual sessions. You have your own assigned psychologist or psychiatrist. There's a gym. There's yoga. There's art therapy, music therapy. So it was quite daunting going in when we were driving up, pulling up, just looking out. It looked like this old, it's been refurbed now, it looks pretty nice. But at the time, it looked like an old jail or school a little bit. It wasn't the nicest looking thing. And so I remember sitting in the car being a bit nervous, but went in there, met the nurse. She was amazing. She really looked after me, went above and beyond. And then just started working on a plan, I guess. Worked on a plan, worked on my mindset, worked on gratitude, empathy, writing in a journal, mindfulness, yoga, gym, a bit of a plan for when I left the clinic, which was important. Whether it was not to return to rugby league. That was part of my undoing. Go build my relationships back, go connect with my mum for the first time in 8 years, try and build my relationship back with my wife, go out in the community and help others and give back, do something for somebody else instead of, I felt like I was a good person, but for whatever reason, my actions in the media, my behaviours probably made people think that I wasn't. So I kind of sometimes didn't, or if I wasn't playing well, I didn't want people to think, oh, what's he coming here for? So just to do something for somebody else. So all these things to kind of also realise that my self-worth's not attached to rugby league. And I think that's what I got messed up for a long period of time, that if I wasn't playing well as a rugby league player, then I wasn't a good person. And that's just so wrong. And I think that's what so many sports people get in trouble, and probably just people in general. If you're attached to your job, you're asking for trouble, because when that doesn't work out, or things change, and things changed all the time, and COVID's a prime example of that, then your mental health and well-being can go down really, really quickly. So I had to change that and just realise that I was a good person, or whether I was a rugby league player or not, whether I played a bad game or not, whether our team lost or not. So it was a big step. It didn't happen overnight. I didn't go there for 3 weeks and magically leave and change. I didn't return to rugby league for 6 months. The rest of that season, a lot of criticism there, with my team, and didn't return to that club, and probably some of the players not, buying into maybe what I was going through or believing. Who really knows? That's just my own perceptions, I guess. But I had 3 or 4 people visit me in the clinic, and I'll really hold those people close to me, because I know that through a tough time, those people really made the effort to come and visit me and show support. But yeah, it was just, at the end of the day, it was the best thing I ever did. I was 27. I wish I did it when I was 17, because I really probably needed it then. But I'm so glad I did it then, not when I finished footy at 33, 34, because finishing and retiring from sport's hard enough, and the change and challenges that you go through. And without having to go through your own mental health journey, I guess. So to really understand me as a person, my self-worth, what I want to achieve, what's important in life, my support network, who I have around me, I could really actually finish my career off the way I wanted to, and also plan a really good future for life after, and that's what I've been able to do.
And reconnecting with your mother after 8 years, was that something that through the journey, your mental health journey, you were like, this, I need to tick this off. I need to find that reconnection again, and I suppose close things out, or sort out what went on there. Like how was that?
I think it's just to kind of just close the door that was always left open. I think it just kind of to be honest, and this is my personality, my wife probably asks her more questions than I do, but sometimes I haven't really actually ever asked her, do you know who my father is, or
really
what really happened, all those years ago? Like, it's just, I don't know. And then, to be honest, it's 20 years ago now, like when she was struggling with her mental health. She's been on medication for probably 20 years.
Yeah.
And I know my wife's asked a few of those questions and she doesn't really know. So I don't want to push her. And at the end of the day, she was a good mum to me for those years. I didn't understand. We lost contact. And now I've got children of my own. I just want her to feel like hopefully I can bring some happiness and joy to her life. She can be a grandmother. Look at my 3 daughters I have now, and I can kind of look after her. And that's kind of the mentality I've got. And we don't see each other. I wish I could see her more, and that's probably up to me because she's at the Gold Coast. It's not far. But whenever I drive down, my eldest daughter does nippers at Broadbeach. We will stop in on the way home or the way before. I would take her out for Mother's Day, or go for brekkie, or do some things throughout the year and spend time around Christmas. So it's really nice to have her at the back of my life. And like I said, just keeping that door, I suppose closing that door, just to know that she's in my life. It was not the same mum-son relationship that we had all those years ago, but I feel more content in my own life now that she's back in my life.
Did your experience in the time in Wentworthville, in that mental health facility, did that kind of give you a little bit more perspective on maybe what she might have been going through, even though you don't know exactly what she would have been going through? The fact that people do find themselves in these situations of psychological, I guess, despair.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think that's one thing. I was going through huge challenges for different reasons, and that's something that I kind of could I suppose self-reflect and go, well, obviously this is something that my mum was struggling with all these years ago, and still has troubles with. So yeah, I think it was something that was a bit eye-opening experience for me on a number of levels, and I just really wanted to again close that door and just be in her life, whatever that looked like. I wasn't sure what that looked. I didn't know where she lived. I didn't know. I think my wife found her on Facebook. I didn't know.
Oh, really?
I didn't know, have an address. I didn't even, to be honest, apart from her sending me a birthday gift here or there over the 8 years, I honestly wouldn't have known if she was still alive. Like, I just had no idea, hadn't heard from her. Like, I'd changed the phone numbers. Like, I probably made it a conscious effort to really,
cut away.
So I really didn't know. So I didn't know what I was walking into. I didn't know who she was living with. I didn't know if she ever thought about me on an 8 year. Like, I just had no idea. So, she's got a couple of dogs, and she's living with a friend. And so over the last, what's it been now? About 8 years now. We've been able to reconnect and see where she lives, or what she does, or how she gets around, or what her life looks like now. And like I said, we spend, I would say at least 6 or 7 times together a year, and it's nice to have her back in my life. And I think it's great for my daughters to have more family around them and more support like I didn't have when I was growing up. Totally.
I suppose talking now post footy. So how long you've retired? 2 years ago. Yeah. So how's that process been? Finishing up. Obviously had a massive career, over 300 games. Like I think we spoke to Sheila about. I think the average amount of games for an NRL person, like 40 something games, just under 2 seasons,
2 years,
right?
Yeah, something like that.
So we must have played for about 15 years. Yeah. So how's that process been coming out of that 15 years of your life, which is majority, I suppose, of your life, into normal civilian day to day living?
I think I was really lucky in a number of reasons. Obviously the clinic was huge for me, just to learn a lot about myself and keep working on my own mental health and my own well-being, and learning some things about me as a person, and ticking some boxes or closing some doors, so that I was kept doing that all the way until I was about to retire and move into a new chapter. So that was one. The other one, I think, generally finding out a bit of an interest and a passion outside of rugby league, which was giving back and helping others. I really found some, enjoyment, some really good self-worth and feeling inside for doing something for somebody else. So I started off at the Broncos with my our wellbeing officer at the time when I first met him. Just going out to junior rugby league clubs and just talking about my story, my journey. We get Livin to come along and get out some hats and wristbands, other things, and just starting off doing those type of things. So that's kind of worked into essentially some of the things I do now for the Bronx, and even just privately as well. Some talks, some workshops through schools and other things. So that's been doing something for somebody else, giving back, helping others. It's really been beneficial, not only for me and my journey, but just for my meaning and purpose in life. I guess having a genuine, meaning in life outside of rugby league, something I really, really enjoy, but it's not rugby league. And then, to be honest, in a weird way, I think COVID was really good for that as well, just because, the whole comp shut down. We had some challenges. You weren't allowed to leave your house when you were playing. I played in that last year in 2020 of COVID. The comp shut down after 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was a
I'd already announced my retirement in the preseason, so that could have been my last 2 games. And we ended up playing another 18, I think it was, in the end. But so just understanding that, we had pay deductions, so even just going through less pay, because obviously I was going to be on less pay when I retired. So there's all these little transitions I think just really, really set me up, realising that footy isn't the be-all and end-all. It's going to finish at some point, but very, very grateful for what I've been able to experience in it and maybe use some of those tools next phase of life. And have a genuine plan. I think that's what I've been able to do, and good things happen. I always think good things happen to good people, and I never planned on staying in rugby league. I knew I was working at the Broncos doing some things, and the coaching stuff popped up, which I've been really enjoying more than I probably thought I would. And that's probably helped too, to be honest. I basically work at the Broncos 5 days a week, whether it's in the community or whether it's some positional coaching. So I'm there almost every day. I see some of the same faces, have a coffee with some of the blokes. We talk about football and plays, or
you probably
talk about well-being, or how's your family going. We talk about the same kind of things.
You're being that figure for them now that I
had
when you were
or needed, but it's just I just don't put the boots on Friday and don't get criticised on Monday. So it's probably a win-win, to be honest.
I mean, it must be interesting at the moment, like looking at what Payne's going through with the past couple of weeks. Like he's under the spotlight hard.
Like it must getting booed by your own crowd. Fuck at home, like
that's hectic.
This is how hard it is, right? If you don't play well, you get sprayed and you get hammered. He's been the best prop in the game for a couple of years,
and he's only 21 or
22.
2. Yeah,
and he's getting, and yes, it's a different reason, but he's getting hammered too, and he's at the peak of his powers, absolute freak, and couldn't be a better player, at right this point in time. And yes, we know what's happened, and it's up for debate what you think about it or how it's panned out, or if that's actually the true story. But end of the day, he's getting hammered and he's at the peak of his powers. So what happens when he doesn't play well, has an injury, or he
totally. You've only got a finite window.
That's what I mean. It's just it's never ending. That's the sad part, is that he's at the peak of his. Latrell Mitchell was at that point a year or two ago when he was changing clubs and he was getting absolutely hammered. He was this young superstar of a kid coming through that's going to be, I wouldn't say the next GI, he's the next Latrell Mitchell, but he's a freak of the game, the next superstar, and he was getting sprayed because he was going to go change different clubs. They didn't know where he was going, had to visit in towns, had to visit somewhere else, and there was all this criticism and negativity around it, and that's worrying, because when you're at the peak and you're still getting criticism,
hammered,
then what's it going to be like when you're at the pit, and that's only... If it's consistent, that's what you really start to worry about people's mental health.
Totally.
Do you look at your journey, your story, being the shy kid, going through what you went through with your family, even just listening to you talk now? Like I've never heard you talk anywhere, I don't think. Like, and you have a really good way with words. The way you're talking about, footy career, just emotional intelligence, all this kind of stuff. Like, is that what you thought? How you thought you'd turn out?
No, I remember when I was younger and the whole media side of things, we used to do media training, other things. I was 18, 19-year-old kid, and they used to always bring up little what's the word, like examples of players. It'd be like, I know you don't like talking now, but one day you'll be probably talking on the media when you finish your career, or you'll be doing this, you'll be doing that. And I was like, that's no chance, that's not me, and I still, it isn't me to an extent, but I still do go and talk about mental health and well-being in a different setting. I'm not probably on the camera doing it, but to groups, organisations, school kids, sharing my story, my journey, running workshops, those type of things. Getting up in front of a crowd was never my thing, it never has been. But when you're doing it for the good of somebody else and you're passionate about it, then I think it
can flow on.
And I think it just I don't know, it resonates with you. It just works, and I think that's something that if you told me 10 years ago I'd be doing what I'm doing now, I would never have thought it, but it's something that I really enjoy, and I'm grateful I get the opportunity to do it.
Amazing. Well, I mean, thanks so much for your time. It was, it's incredible to chat through, get, a really in-depth understanding of your journey and your mental health journey, through your career, what you're up to now. Thanks for all the support, being on the panel the other day, repping your TradeMutt shirt,
Nice,
obviously,
shirt.
supporting TX with, that connection as well. So, Darius, on behalf of, Dan and I and the whole TradeMutt team and everyone listening, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Appreciate
mate. Good on you.
Thank you.
Awesome. That was great.
If I stop, I'll die.